Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Alpha Type Podcast. Apologies for the late start, but with the live shows, sometimes you have tech problems. You got to work it out. So we're here, joined by my co-host EJ as always, and we're going to be talking with BAWSA today. I'm really excited about all this. So, EJR, welcome to the show. BAWSA, welcome to the show, and we're going to kind of dive right into it here, man. Uh, BAWSA, I want to talk to you about your brief introduction for anybody that doesn't know you already. I know you started the music industry. You've been all in on this content creation in Web3. So just give us a little bit of a backstory here about of where you started and when you made that decision to go all in on content creation here.
Absolutely, man. And first of all, I'm really honored and humbled to be here. So I appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with you guys. But yeah, just quick little TLDR. I kind of came across this space and that NFT run in 2021, 2022, maybe similar to many people here in today's space. Um, but what kind of how it unravels, what's funny about it is I was in a studio session one day and an artist that I was working with at the time had a Bored Ape himself, and he was kind of just a good friend of mine. He was just showing me like, hey, like check this out. This is what an NFT is, and I can sell it for this amount of dollars. And I was like, what the heck is this? So ever since that conversation unfolded, I kind of found myself, slowly trickling my way into this space. And I think by that time it was already 2023, which is where the bear market settled in. But it wasn't really until I would say 2024 when I fully decided to, you know what, let me pause on music and let me go full time in this space. And that is by far probably one of the best decisions that I've done in my life. And sitting where I am today, I'm very honored and grateful for everything, all the opportunities and blessings so far. But yeah, that's the quickest spill of how I
There
am
you
and
go.
where I ended up today. Yeah.
Like we've talked about that kind of experience with, like you said, you look at that board ape and you're understanding, like, yeah, the monetary value behind it, but also just like the mechanics of it all and the ownership of it all and how that kind of grabs people and sucks them in. That's kind of the first conversation EGR and I had together. And like, I'm wondering, is that how it was for you? Or was it like, oh, there's a lot of money, I'm interested? Or did you have that kind of inexplicable NFT Web3 kind of experience like I'm talking about?
Yeah, so it was first like the money, but then the moment I joined my first Discord for like, remember grinding for whitelist spots, like the classic way of getting whitelist. I remember joining my first Discord and just experiencing this idea of what community building is like. And I think that's what really enticed me the most was like seeing the process of how communities were built over like this JPEG, over this IP. And again, I later realized that people are just sometimes are here for the money and sometimes people are here for the community. And I was in
Mm.
that latter. I was here for the community. And so that's what really kind of piqued my interest into the potential of NFTs outside of the price tag. But yeah, that's kind of like the main value that I saw.
Okay, gotcha. So now you said it was about 3 years ago that you made the decision to go all in on Web3. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Roughly around
So
the same time frame.
talk me through that. Like, what did you do? You made that decision, and then what happened?
Yeah. So I've always had this fond appreciation of content. And I remember my first YouTube video I uploaded when I was like 9 years old on YouTube. And this was like back when YouTube had was so new. But I was posting like these piano covers of me playing piano, and it would some of them would get views. And my 9 year old self was like, man, this is actually kind of crazy. Like I don't know what social media is, but there's these ways that you can upload videos of yourself, and it gets views. And so I've always dabbled into content for the longest time, and that to me is kind of how I view my position and purpose in Web3 is to really shed light on the artistry of content creation. That this isn't just something that you write up, you hit posts, you write up a thread, you talk about alpha. Like there's art and creativity in content.
Hmm.
And so I saw the gap of how much this was lacking back in like 2023, and I feel like even till today there's a lot of like this AI slop that you see on the timeline. And so my goal right now is to proliferate the creators that are actually putting a ton of effort and a lot of creativity behind their content. And right now, I want to build them a platform to kind of spotlight these guys. So I saw that in 2023, and I almost felt like that was like my calling, if I can like name it like that. Was like I think this is
Sure.
like a little bit of like my purpose right now is to shape and refine how content is received in Web3. And so yeah, that's kind of been my main focus so far.
Nice, very nice. And spaces was a big part of it for you, right? Like, how long? When did you get into spaces, and what was it that drew you to those?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think all this was kind of happening in that same year, like 2023, right? Is I saw this massive potential for how Spaces was a platform to have real, honest conversations. And I was actually having a similar conversation today with this about someone. Spaces, what I love about Spaces is the moment you ask a question, you're able to get that instant feedback response from a speaker. And I feel like you can't really replicate that human interaction as if it was the comment section of a post, right? Comments, sometimes you don't even know if it's actually the creator nowadays because people hire reply guys to respond to posts for you, and so that's why I value Spaces so much is it really highlights the human interaction that is missing in crypto. And 9 times out of 10, we're all hiding behind JPEGs, right? Like we don't really know if this person is actually real sometimes. And so Spaces to me was a way of attaching a voice to a brand, and that to me shows how memorable a brand can be is sometimes by doing little things like speaking on a space. Now people recognize you, people know how you speak, people know your hosting style, right? So doing this over a long period of time has really helped me like gain my edge, find my edge. And I think
Hmm.
it's just proven that authenticity is always going to be king, especially in the world of AI nowadays. So that's how I kind of see it, and why Spaces is so valuable to me.
Got it. Now, when you say attaching the voice to the brand, like we're in crypto space, a lot of people are behind the, cartoon PFPs, and a lot of people are full and on. How does that play into this, or how does that support a creator and being more personal, even if they do want to stay anonymous?
Yeah, yeah. I think Web3 is all about trust, and like it's really hard sometimes when, for example, a founder is doing a typical raise through an NFT collection. Nowadays I feel like your buyer has really matured and has kind of like this high set of standards for why should I buy this NFT. And so I feel like the more you are transparent, the more you're authentic with how you're going about your project, marketing, whatever it may be, as long as you're establishing trust in this environment, I think you have a more likely, chance of success through whatever it is that you're launching versus someone that is completely anon, doesn't really speak on their own thoughts, doesn't hop on spaces, doesn't really, find their own voice in the space. I feel like it's really hard to trust someone like that. And again, this is speaking for the people though that are committed to being here in the long term, because
Right.
grifters and scammers, they'll fake a play for a month, and the moment they get their money, they're out of here, right?
Hmm.
So this is kind of speaking to the other side of that audience where you're legit, you're real, you want to do something cool, right? I think being transparent and establishing trust is the way to go about it.
Got it. Now, for somebody who does want to stay anon, do you think that is enough to bridge that gap? Like, as you just thinking about it from building a brand standpoint, like how does somebody kind of stay anon but be transparent and earn that trust and everything else? Is the voice enough, or what else? What else have you seen people do that worked?
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because I've seen also this other end of the stick that you're describing actually work out, because it's kind of like a play into speculation. People like kind of getting lost in their own thoughts and putting their own ideas, their own puzzle pieces together. And I take a look at this at someone like, for example, with this whole Laudio thing right now with Ultra. No one really knows. Like, I think the sentiment is like no one really knows if Ultra is a girl or if they're a man, because they're speculating that this person is
Hmm.
actually using like a voice changer, right? And so that type of narrative, when you use that type of narrative, you actually create like this interesting feedback loop from your audience that people are just constantly talking about you in rooms, and they're trying to figure out and decipher you like a puzzle. And so I think staying anon is actually not that it's bad nor good. I think it's just really how you go about it. But I feel like at the end of the day, like, let's say these crypto conferences eventually want to invite you out to come and speak. Like, and if you are someone that is willing to come and share in public, then I think there comes a time where you're gonna have to kind of step out of that bubble and break your shell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess it depends on like your approach and how someone wants to go about it.
That makes good sense. And it's interesting though from a brand standpoint and from an attention standpoint to be
Yeah.
that bit of an enigma like you were just describing, because it's interesting, right? And
Yeah.
things that are interesting are more sticky and people are going to pay more attention to. So that's a interesting little angle I hadn't thought about with it. So for anybody, actually, at one point I wanted to make real quick as someone who does stay anon, you've been talking with them the last couple of days, EJR, is Pons, who is anon and who's immensely trusted in the space.
I
And
mean, Board Elon has 1.7 million
there you go. There's
followers, and
another one.
he's
Yeah.
anon, and he goes on Spaces, and he's actually hired, companies to try and see if they could figure out who he was. It's very important to some people. And when you talk about projects too, we've seen a lot of situations. I mean, look at Goblin Town at first, right? Everyone thought it was Yuga, and it went to 80s, and it was crazy. And then how many times has people thought Beeple was behind a project? Nakamigos, like, I guess it just depends on how it happens. It depends on the time, and it always revolves around that crypto fear and greed meter, right? You can get away with a lot more when the greed meter's high and the market's good than you could if it's not. The market runs on innovation when it's fear, and when it's on greed, it goes more towards imitation can work, but innovation should always drive the market. So that's what I want to say. But there's a lot of people that are anonymous. I mean, it's just sometimes it can really help you. I mean, especially when you launch something like Nakamigos and people think it's Beeple, or I mean, look, it works for Goblin Town incredibly, So I think it's very interesting.
Run wild, which
Yeah.
can be helpful when you're selling things. So
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people dox. Look at projects that dox. I mean, I forgot what the name of it was, but remember we had someone on the show, they mentioned it. Oh God, it was like one of the biggest rugs ever. They raised like $30 million. It was Moguro or whatever, Monguru.
Yeah, I remember
that
the
project.
conversation was with Hendrickson.
Yeah, Momoguro, yeah. And then and then also, and I think you actually might have done some spaces for Overworld, right?
Yeah,
completely
correct.
doxed.
Yeah.
And so there's two sides of the coin. Does doxing really matter, or does what you deliver matter in the space? And it really comes down to what you deliver matters, because you don't know what someone's situation is. Someone could be doxed and fine, and they could have financial trouble in their life, and they're doing their, they're ready to leave the scene with one big hit so they can provide for their family.
Yeah.
You never know, and that's what makes this space so interesting. And going back just to what you said about what gets you into the space, I think for a lot of people, like, they might be attracted to money, but I got into the space, I guess early 2020. And it's very interesting because around the time that COVID happened, I genuinely fell in love with the tech, and like everyone was isolated. It was lockdown, and this was a way for people to connect. And what fascinated me the most was you could be, someone, didn't matter what you look like, didn't matter who you are, didn't matter if you had all your limbs even, just a little kid living under a rock somewhere. As long as you had Wi-Fi and a laptop and some talent, you could change your life overnight by putting out a collection of like dolphins. We've seen the show on Netflix where, Beeple did art for 5,000 days, and then you see his reaction on Netflix when it kept on going higher and higher, and it hit that $68 million. And I think right now we're seeing a place where the market's kind of thriving again. I think abstract's been a big part of that. It's almost like a little brand incubator kind of fish tank where it's recreating the whole environment over again for a lot of people, and they're enjoying that experience. I mean, I think the one area though is artists are still, that area needs to be helped for artists. How do they thrive in this market right now? But I see things being much better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Sorry
a great
to ramble,
equalizer for sure.
Yeah.
Which is, but it's perfect for the topic at hand here, which is building that brand, right? Because that's anybody, anywhere can pick up. Anybody, it's any age, any location, any skill set really can pick up and can start building the brand in the space. So, and then like, obviously we talked about the non stuff just because by chance there, that wasn't what I would focus on, but more generally, like, you're kind of a student of brand building and you're always talking about brand building, and that's what I'd really like to break open here. So in this great equalizer space of Web3 and crypto, like, what's the advice to somebody who's picking up from nothing, wants to start a brand, wants to make a difference for the long haul, obviously, right? How do you get somebody started? Where do you tell them to go?
I think like your network is probably the most important thing to want to get started on right away, because I feel, even like, for example, there are so many talented smaller creators in the space that don't even have 5K, 10K followers, but like, that's kind of like the full message, right? Is like people telling you, oh, you need to grind to 10K, 15K. Really, at the end of the day, these metrics are just numbers. And metrics doesn't necessarily reflect on talent or in skill set. And if anything, it's just a reflection of who do you know in this space and what have you provided, right? It's really just a concept of visibility. And so I think if you're new, the most important thing to first is one, understand your edge, right? Like, what is it about me that I can provide on the table that will make me hireable or make people want to talk to me, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
even before you start thinking about selling a product, right? You ask yourself, is there even a need or a desire from an audience that wants my product or even wants me to be involved in something? And so I feel like if you tackle your network first, that will actually open up many doors down the road where eventually maybe you can find like your true pocket in this space. And that's something that I've learned is like after being referred to as a space host to many other brands, I've actually ended up finding some of my favorite brands I love working with because of a friend or a mutual that was, referring me to, hey, can you do this space for this guy? Or hey, can I offer you to meet this person? Right. So it's this domino effect, this compound effect of providing value to one person will eventually open up many doors to two or three more people. And the same process that kind of happens there. Now it's like this huge web flow of networking that kind of happens on that. So I think
Yep.
networking is probably step one in my
Yeah,
opinion.
right on. I think the key thing that you said there is somebody that you provided value to, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a relationship with someone, you open a relationship with someone, you help them in some way, you give them something, you help them solve a problem, etc. That person, that starts to build that trust that you talked about earlier, and then you can go back to that person and say, hey, do you know anybody that, right? Like if you're
Mm-mm.
looking for something, or sometimes they'll just do it on their own, like, hey, this, boss is good at space, he hosted my space, he can host yours, why don't you check him out, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then that kind of thing starts to happen. So yeah, I think the key is providing value, and how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest chokehold though for a lot of creators, in my opinion, is like they'll actually give up, I feel like, within like 3 to 6 months if they're not seeing results. Um,
Okay.
but that's kind of like this is almost like a principle in my opinion, is like, we always hear consistency is everything, and I 100% stand by that. But after consistency or even before consistency is like how committed are you in this game that you're playing, right? Like, yes, we call it Web3, but I look at it as like the next digital economy. This is like this intersection of AI, blockchain, so many different types of techs kind of just merging into one place. And so I feel like you can't be looking at the space only for the money aspect. There's so many pockets that I feel is currently being open or is yet to be built, and maybe that is where you find your spot in this place. So just staying around. I think it's important to even just stay around, have an ear to the ground on what's going on, and eventually like maybe a meta or a certain trend will want to fit your own taste, your own interest, and now it feels more organic, and you're not forcing yourself to want to participate in crypto.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. So as you started to do that, you were building your network around spaces, you're hosting spaces. That was the primary thing. What else were you doing in between there besides the space hosting? What else were you doing to build your own brand over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed just writing in general. I think writing is like a form of expression. And for me, I've always loved covering like what is it about these NFT projects that, for example, Pudgy Penguins, Zuki, and Bored Apes, all these, what is it about their brand that makes it so attractive? And so for me personally, like I love doing deep dive research, and it kind of reflects on my spaces. I don't know if you ever tune into one of my spaces, but like I always like asking very technical, deep dive questions. And it's because I like to challenge people. I like to challenge their thoughts. I like to challenge like their thought making decision process, stuff like that. And so that to me kind of reflects on like the technicalities of my content and why I like covering specific things such as like marketing, how this project built a brand, and I'll go into super duper details there. And so that's what kind of drove and made me found my unique edge is like when you come across my content, you get a little bit more in-depth insight compared to maybe something that's more like surface level, because
Hmm.
content is so quick. You read it and then it disappears. And so I feel like if you provide something that people want to come back to, right? And like again, that's why I love bookmarks. Like I think bookmarks is one of the best metrics. Is because people see
Mm,
a reason to want to maybe save it and come back to it later,
yeah.
right? So that's that's kind of like my edge outside of spaces is like writing and just doing a little bit more deep dive research on certain brands.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and your posts tend to be a little bit longer form, which
Yeah.
shows that for sure. You're getting into the details of it. Even like your hot take posts end up being quite. You build them out quite a bit on the fly there. It looks like. So yeah, I can see that for sure. So one of the things you've been talking about lately on your feed is about I'd say kind of two angles to it. One is what's missing in content today,
Hmm.
and the other is the impact on content creation that the InfoFi or SocialFi is having right now.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start with that first one of what do you think is missing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like I talk about this both on Spaces streams and even my content is like I think creativity is missing a lot right now in just the overall concept of content because ever since kind of this whole InfoFi has infiltrated like this space, a lot of the content has been driven from like alpha, like always like this either pre TGE token, coming out soon or this project's coming out soon. And again, it talks about what we were talking about saying earlier is like people love speculating. And so content has really shifted towards something that is alpha driven. And that's where a lot of the quote unquote value is seen nowadays. And so, but for me, coming from a music background and like as a creator myself, I want to proliferate that side of content again. Is like how do we embrace and really respect the side of artistry in this? And this is the thing, it's not for everyone, right? But that's my point is I want to start like this movement that starts from maybe 5 to 10 creators that are passionate about creating really cool content to then hopefully this being a domino effect to these other creators that aren't doing this and they feel kind of persuaded or they feel you know influenced or inspired in a sense to want to pursue a more creative route with their content. And so even if it's as simple as something like this, right, like popping up a camera, learning the basic fundamentals of editing a video nowadays, what makes a good editing video, right, like stuff like that, learning how to be different and unique in content, that's what I feel is missing because I feel everything is kind of like regurgitated and it's the same
Yeah.
content this, same alpha this, but realistically, I only need to follow 2 to 3 people that tell me what's the latest alpha, and then everything else, I want something different, So yeah,
Yeah, I could totally see that in my feed too. It is, yeah, you got to sort through a lot of regurgitated stuff, but like certain people stand out, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then they're like, and it's again speaking to brand, it's like, oh, that's a value post. I'm gonna take a second to read that.
yeah.
I think that makes good sense. And then I think perfect kind of tangent off of that is the social fi stuff, right? Like, so obviously
Mm-mm.
today, everybody on the internet, everyone on CT at least is talking about loud. If you look at that Yap leaderboard, it's basically all green for Loudio.
Yeah.
That's the latest iteration, but this is what's been happening. We've got Yaps, we've got Snaps, we've got Quacks. There's like all these different things, and they've been financially rewarding for people, so it has a draw to it. But I think your statement was InfoFi is killing content in Web3, which is precisely the opposite of what it's supposed to be doing.
Mm,
So
mm,
let's
mm.
talk about that. What do you mean when you say it's killing the content in Web3?
Yeah, so and I think just to clarify, like I think I made a post about this is like I think Infofy killed creativity in content. I don't think it
Ah, okay.
killed
I
I don't think
may,
it
maybe
killed
misquoting.
content. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, because I know sometimes like it's easy to combine the both creativity and content
Hmm.
because they kind of go hand in hand. But I think Infofy just killed creativity. It didn't kill content, and if anything, it proliferated the concept of content because now you're seeing so many different types of creators, both small and big, kind of participate in this creator economy by producing, such things for the apps, quacks, snaps, etc.
Hmm.
You named it, right? But in my perspective, like I just said, it killed the creativity because now people just need to write up like the quickest TLDR on a project on a TGE that's coming out, and now that's considered content in today's standards of Web3.
Hmm.
So I'm just trying to raise the bar. I'm not trying to
Yep.
manipulate or change the flywheel. I think Infofy is actually great for the creator economy, but maybe we can change the way how we present it and how we communicate it to our audience and just make it a little bit more refined and creative.
Yeah, it's like it's a new feedback loop or new feedback mechanism that we don't necessarily understand yet.
Yeah.
Because conceptually, I like the idea of tools helping to identify who are the people creating value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
in all of that noise, sometimes that would be helpful to, to drive attention to the ones that are more valuable because sometimes the market don't quite get it right? Like when it's a hype
Yeah.
driven market, especially the one we're in. But it's a different type of feedback loop because now everyone's trying to create content that causes this algorithm to judge them in a certain way. Whereas before, you were trying to generate content to either increase a following, to sell a product, to increase subscribers, like whatever, like that was the feedback loop that people were caring about. So, what do you think is like different now? Like, or how is it better and how is it worse that we have this different feedback mechanism?
Yeah, I think it's, if anything, it's really dependent though on the creator, because sometimes, like, for an example, I look at like people like Whale, ICO, right? Like these guys are so on top of like the latest trends in alpha. And so for me, I look at these guys as like the go-tos for a certain genre, a certain niche. But then what happens is people essentially follow that same blueprint that these guys are doing, aka like a certain topic or a certain content niche. And this is where the regurgitation starts, is like people start picking off from what Whale said, and then you kind of just reiterate what Whale said, but now it's just communicated and written differently, but it's the same message, you know? So that type of feedback, I think that's the part where I feel like, okay, maybe you, if you're a creator that is following in the same kind of niche as ICO, Whale, whatever it may be, maybe change your approach a little bit so that you can stand out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I almost look at this as like, the question is, what do I have to do to make a user read my content versus Whale's content on the same topic, right? Now, like, it's a competition game at the end of the day too. Content, I feel, is like about attention and competition, but this is how I feel in anything in life, right? Is like what makes you different from your peers, even if you're starting from zero, you know? So that journey of constantly finding your edge requires feedback, both good and bad, you know? So that's why for me, you have to be adaptable in the space. You can't, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like that's kind of like
Yeah.
my saying, right? Like you can't hate the casino. You know, if anything, it's you that's entering the casino, and why you're losing money, right? So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, that was I saw that in your post today was
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
that about how Ultra's got us all on puppet strings,
Yeah, yeah.
at least for the next week or so. And you were commenting on
Yep.
that and like don't hate the player, hate the game. And like my thought I was like I don't like don't hate either, right? Like
Yeah.
we're choosing to be here. And if you look at some of these Laudio is a perfect example, right? If you look
Mhm,
at it in a vacuum for what we're doing, it's pretty silly,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Like
mhm.
everyone's literally just putting Laudio at the end of it and looking for things to respond to that say Laudio or tag it. Like there's not a lot of people trying to create value in this particular exercise, but it's interesting from a standpoint of one, it's an interesting social experiment. Like, how do people behave under these circumstances? Like, that's interesting. But also, how does the tooling support this type of thing? Right. And even if this isn't particularly valuable right now, today, as an experiment, what does it help us learn that maybe allows the next thing to happen that is? So that's kind of how I look at these things and almost how I
Yeah.
look at everything in crypto. Like a lot of what I do in a vacuum is silly, especially if I try to explain it to somebody outside of the space. It's like, what the fuck
Mm.
are you talking about? Like, why would you spend any of your time doing this? But it's
Yeah.
because the tooling is cool and the way people respond to it is cool. And it's like, I see it all as one big experiment. So that's kind of my take on this
Mhm.
current iteration. Um, but I do hope something useful comes of these things, right? Like I
Yeah.
do hope that the tools can help you identify maybe the people who are good at gaming attention versus the people that are good at adding value.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have you played it all with it's the wall chain has a plugin and it shows the scores for people based on
Mm.
their algorithm.
Yes,
X rank,
yes.
yeah.
So yeah, X rank. So it's been I haven't spent a ton of time evaluating, but what I have noticed is that there's a lot of times where I'll have somebody, follow me who's got like 45,000 followers on their account, and I'll click on them and they'll have a score and it's like 107. And then I'll see someone who has like 5,000 and they have a score of like 175. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like interesting to me. And I've actually seen people with really big followings who have super low scores, like 7. And I'm like, all right, does that mean they're just botted and buying followers? So I do like there's some signal starting to come out of all of us. I don't know if it's meaningful yet. I'm just curious your take on that. Have you seen that? Have you seen any positive impacts of any of
Yeah.
this tooling yet?
So what's fascinating is first of all, like I've heard of wall chain, but I know this the bigger one was like ethos, right? Like everyone was
Mm-hmm.
hopping on ethos. And here's the thing, that I'll be completely transparent, is like I didn't hop on this whole ethos thing because of one, the way that I was seeing people approach it was like people were literally just doing vouch for vouch. So meaning
Yeah.
that I can just say that, hey, like good. I can literally just type good and then like give you a 5-star rating, and then it's like, okay, now you have to do the same for me. Like just give me a good rating and I'll give you a good rating. But I'm like, so this is kind of like another farm. Like it's another Ponzi scheme of just
Mm-hmm.
like, if you want a reputable score, just hit up your 100 closest friends, your 100 closest followers on the timeline, ask them to give you a good rating, and you'll do the same for them. And so I'm like, now really, how authentic is that though? Right? Like, and that to me is like, it goes against my morals of what I believe in, is just like, the real people that will really vouch for you don't need a platform to kind of say that, right? Like the people who really rock with you in life, like when your name does come up or in a certain room, they'll protect it or they'll say good things about you, and vice versa. If someone doesn't like you in this space, they're going to tarnish it. They're going to do whatever it takes to make sure you don't get that opportunity, whatever it may be. And so I do like this kind of social credit score though, and something that I've been kind of preaching and wanting to get for the longest time. But you raised a great point, Don. Is just like, you see these 50K accounts, but you check their score, it's like 7, and you wonder
Yep.
like what the hell happened here. And to me, that's a result of like, maybe one, it's true, maybe they're botting, but in my opinion, there's some creators in this, or accounts, I don't even call them creators. There's some accounts in this space that have literally built their following off of giveaways. And if you look at giveaways, nine times out of
Yeah.
10, what's like a step that requires for you to qualify in a giveaway? Follow my account,
Yep.
follow X, follow X, Y, and
Comment.
Z,
Yep. Share it.
comment,
Yep.
etc. So that type of behavior, you're attracting bots. You're attracting people that are just here for the
Yeah.
money, and it's really tough for these type of accounts. For example, let's say some one of these days, some of them decide to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I actually want to approach this with a more an original style. The hardest part is converting that audience into something more substance, because now people expect you to post just whitelists, giveaways, and all of these incentives. But the
Right.
moment you start pivoting to something more original, they're like, what the hell is this? I don't
This
recognize
isn't
this
what I
guy.
signed up for.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
You're
Exactly.
starting
So
all over.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's how I kind
Yeah.
of see that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you got going on now? I saw that you were thinking about taking a break from spaces. You're talking about building out actually, we didn't talk about brick by brick specifically. Why don't we do that first, and then we'll kind of give you a chance to transition or what you do, or talk about what you're transitioning into.
Yeah.
So, the brick by brick is your show. Talk
Mhm.
to us about that, and what you like, what types of content or what types of people you bring on there.
Yeah. So first of all, like, I think it's gonna hit the 2-year mark on June 13th next month, on my first ever episode of Brick by Brick, when I first went live with it. And so what's funny though is the name Brick by Brick, like, this name didn't come about because I was looking to create a media brand, or like creating looking to create like a spaces platform. I was just one day was like thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Life is literally all about brick by brick, because every single day you lay down either one, two, three, four, 5 bricks a day, and then that's you're kind of like building towards your goal. That's how I kind of look at this. It's like you're building your own castle, and so I relate to this concept, and I was like, you know what? Maybe this can kind of be like the visual representation for creators, or just people that are passionate about a goal and they're working their way towards it. I look at it as like you're building brick by brick. And so that was kind of like the embodiment that I wanted to have built from the get-go, was like, this is a place for creators that want to literally document their journey. And every single time you tune into a space, you see newer speakers, you see the same speakers that are just talking about what they're building, what their goal is, right? And eventually over time you kind of see like this timeline of events of like, episode 1, this person talked about this and how he's going to do that. And then episode 10, when you see them again, that what they talked about in episode 1 it's finally out. They built it, and now they're talking about it, now they're sharing it. And so it was a way for me to help creators document their own story, document their own journey. And I feel that's is kind of like my way of giving back in this space is like, you know, I'm at a really healthy spot as far as like where my brand and where my platform is. But what good is it if I'm not giving this platform to other creators that need it? You know,
Yep.
so that's kind of like my fulfillment with Brick by Brick is it's not a media brand as much as I kind of face value kind of is. But for me, it's more of like a platform to, or it's almost like a journal book, like a digital journal platform for creators or builders that want to come on and to share what they're building. And I've had so many amazing people. I had like, yeah, I know EGR and I were talking about Pons earlier today, and like I had Pons back in February talking about grind, talking about what he's doing with the plague. So many founders ranging from different verticals, and that's the best part. Is like
Yeah.
I get to meet so many different faces and personalities, and that's what makes it memorable. So yeah,
Yeah, love that. Love that. Echo that too. I love meeting people like you. Like doing these shows gives you a reason to create these new relationships, and I
yeah,
love that part of it. But I especially like that the purpose of your show is to help other creators. Again, we talked about that. Who are you helping? Who are you creating value for? And like if that's the focus of what you're doing is I'm going to try to help these people do something positive for themselves. Like that's what we're after here. So
yeah.
that's the story we love to share. So with that, you're sounds like you're pivoting or pausing or doing something
Yeah,
a little bit different right now. Tell us about that.
exactly. Yeah. So this was kind of leading like to the second question, right? Like this pause. So right now, yes, like right now there's like this temporary pause. I have yet to make an announcement on it, but like I'm putting like maybe like a 2 to 3 week temporary pause on just Brick by Brick because right now I can't spill much yet, but I'm pretty much working on like this hub that I've been trying to build and this platform again, kind of what I was alluding to earlier on creating a space for specifically creative driven creators in the space to want to be a part of. And this is like a process where one, it's gonna be handpicked. Like I realize though that when you give access to everybody, then that means your product necessarily doesn't have like the value that people want. You know, if you're for everyone, then your product doesn't necessarily have its niche. And so I'm trying to challenge people to really step out of their own comfort zone when it comes to content and almost like prove to me like why are you qualified? How can you become qualified to be a part of like this creative that group that I'm trying to build, you know, and like the whole vision of this is I want this to extend beyond Web3. This is actually like a goal of mine, like for the long run, is I think creators in Web3 are kind of siloed and they're echo. There's like this echo chamber. But if I were to kind of build a bridge where one, I lean into like my music connections in Web2, where I bring in so much like this talent from artists to producers to DJs to content creators in my Web2 world, and I kind of expose them to this community side of Web3, right? Now I'm like hitting multiple birds with one stone because it's like I'm not necessarily showing them the tech. I'm not showing them what blockchain does. But if anything, I'm just showing them probably the number one like livelihood of what keeps Web3 alive, and that's community. And so that to me is like my concept with this. I'm not trying to make it this like speculative, like, oh, is BAWSA releasing an NFT project? No. If anything, I'm building a culture movement that is aiming to proliferate and change the way how we see creative content in this space. And that's my mission, just plain and simple. Is like I want to keep it plain and simple, and then hopefully within months or years from now, it kind of scales into a brand beyond Web3 and Web2. And now it's like it's acting as this bridge that connects so many different creators in many different parts of this social media, you know? So it's a lot to kind of unpack. So it's
Yeah,
still stuck in my head, but yeah.
love it, love it. So it's a create a culture of better content, right?
Exactly.
More meaningful, more helpful, more
Yeah.
valuable, purposeful content. And yeah, I wholeheartedly support that. It's a great vision, a great mission for sure.
Yeah. I would say like my quote that I have for my what I'm trying to build is like infiltrating the world through creative expression. That's what I want to do. Infiltrating the world through creative expression.
I like it.
Yeah.
So what like in a tangible sense, what do you think success looks like for you, like say 6 months from now? starting like really diving into this and open up
Yeah.
in this way. Like, what do you hope to accomplish in the short term?
Man, well, hopefully 6 months, Bitcoin has a hit like 140K, 150K. I
That'd be
hope all
good.
the, I hope all of our bags pump. But truly, I think outside of like the whole monetary thing, I constantly talk about like me moving to Asia, and this is kind of just like me stepping outside of my hometown area that I've been like. I'll be transparent. I live in California, like, and I've been here my whole entire life. 25 years. I'm 25 years old. I've been here my whole life, and I feel like there's like this mental cap that kind of grows over time of when you stay in your same area, your same house for such a long time, and I almost feel like I'm limiting myself to what's really out there in the world. And so I have this goal. This, I don't know if that's like the tangible goal, but like I have this goal of like wanting to just spend maybe 6 months or maybe to a full year of just like outside of my residence and just
Hmm.
experience life from a different perspective. And for me, like my choice is Asia, and I have, again, it's many options, but that
Sure.
to me is like one of the goals. But most importantly, it's like just taking care of my family, and I think that's something that I'm like so grateful for that Web3 has provided me, is like so many plethora of opportunities to help my parents take care of a bill, or like put food on the table, just the simple things that I just want to take care of the people around me. Like that's what I'm forever grateful for. And so that goal is kind of like an everlasting goal, though.
Love
Something
it.
that I'll forever want to have my hands on. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You're a helper and you're a giver.
Yeah.
You can see
Try
that in
to.
the work you do, and you can see that in the purpose behind the work you do, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Definitely why we'd have you on the Alpha Type shows. You're exactly the type of person that we want to promote, we want to enable, we want to do whatever we can to support, etc. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that.
Absolutely.
EJR, I know I tend to dominate the chatter here, my man. What am I
Yeah,
missing out on
I
the way
let you
out?
I let you though because I'm so busy doing other things. It's okay. And he and I spoke when you were having technical difficulties, so I didn't mind letting you dominate me today. You sick bastard. But yeah,
Hey.
so no, I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure, and I kind of saw like when you were taking off, and then Kit was having technical difficulties for a while, and we were speaking, and just I can tell within 30 seconds if someone's real in this space and the reason why they do well or not. And I had the same experience speaking to Pons the other day because, like I said, right now I'm really busy helping these two coins that are launching because they're pre-sales. They're both real founders. They're both legit. You're not going to get robbed, and that's really rare. And then after that, a bunch of people are going to get robbed because same things like Book of Meme redoing itself on Abstract. But right now, I really like what you said about how you're handling things with your project brick by brick, because it's like you're giving back. And in this space, a lot of times people, they always thank me in Discord when I get them whitelist or I do this, or they see that like I should have been to sleep hours ago and I never did, and they're like, are you okay? I do it because I don't know if anybody really did it for me, but I just know that it helps me give back, and I wish somebody would have done it for me. Like I had to grind my ass off to get where I am with my network, but like I'm just saying, when they say it, I almost feel uncomfortable because I do it because it makes me feel good and it makes me feel whole. And I have the ability to do it. So I feel like when you put good out there, it comes back to you. And I think there's certain people in this space that can either, I always say this, and Git knows, it's like, if you're in this space long enough, it's like Star Wars. You're either going to be holding a red lightsaber or a green one. And it's okay because there's room for both in this world. There's got to be, good and evil. It doesn't mean they're evil if they're extractors, but I always just want to be the person holding the green lightsaber at the end of the day, and I think you're like that too. So I'm excited to see your continued success because you've kicked some serious ass, man.
I appreciate that, AGR. And I just want to share this thought too. It's funny, like when the moment I made this decision to like pause on spaces and pivot to something that like I feel more purpose driven and I feel more aligned, it was funny because since that day, I've not only been contacted by you guys, but like so many other people that just want to talk to me about content and like branding and all these things. And I felt like the world was really aligning like every single one of these people together. And I believe that, man. I believe in good
Yep.
karma. I believe in like literally what EGR said. And that's something that I forever will stand by. Whenever you put good into the world, zero expectations. Don't expect anything in return.
Yep.
But
So that's
naturally, I
why.
feel like life will eventually want to reward you back for that. You know,
Yeah.
could be days from now, could be weeks, could be years, but just keep doing the goodwill, and it'll eventually find its way back.
You'd
Yeah,
be
man.
surprised, man. It could
Right on.
change overnight, you just
Yes,
don't know. And I don't know when
exactly.
you did shows, but like, the reason why we don't like promote anything is because like there's been a couple times where like I've done a favor and I'd be like, oh, come on the show. And then like the show's coming up and Git knows. I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do the show because I feel like it's a promotion. I don't know. Like if I'm honest, I'm not really cool about this project. It's only happened once or twice, but it's like I cringe. And he knows like I don't want to do it because something in me is just not able to do that. And I think being so successful in doing so many projects and some of them not turning out well, that also probably had an effect on you wanting to kind of change what you were doing. Not that it was your fault in any way, but like you're just better than that and you have no control over the outcome of what was happening, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I can relate. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, no, thank you for the time today, boss. It was great to get to know you and share with the
Absolutely.
audience here. And yeah, keep us posted on your new project and anything we could do to help. You got supporters in us. We're here for you. And yeah, just that's it, man. Thanks for the time. Appreciate you.
Much love, guys, both of you, and thank you again. I would love to have possibly another part two of a catch up conversation, sometime soon. But yeah, thank you to you guys as
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once you
Yep.
have some stuff you want to announce, let us know. We'll absolutely do it again.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
Right
guys.
on.
And we got some stuff to announce too. So we'll come on with you at some point.
Yes.
We got some beautiful shit we're building this year. And we're looking to make history in the space. And I think this year is going to be great for a lot of people that have been here for a long time. We're just working
Brick by brick.
Brick by
brick
brick.
by
That's what
brick.
it's all about.
Yep. Brick by brick.
All right. Awesome. And to all of you watching, we're here every Tuesday and Thursday, 4 p.m. We will be back soon. And please follow us and join us and let us know if you got something awesome you want to talk about on the show. That's it. All right. We'll
Much
see y'all
love.
next time.
See you
Have a
guys.
good one, brother.